Hey, 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 this is Charlotte.
And I'm Daryl.
And we are the Bakers, and we are here for what? Welcome to Truth for Daily Living. And this has definitely been a day of true daily living, right, honey?
It's been
Oh my.
been an
We
experience.
had to tell you that story another time. But at any rate, we have some guests that are waiting for us. And we're going to be talking about a subject today called the journey to becoming one in a blended family. Okay. So as soon as we come back, we're going to get started. So just hold on. We'll be right back. All right, we are here, and so is our guests. Our guests are here, Mr. Brian and Miss Nancy. How are you?
Hey, we're all good.
Doing well, thanks.
Good.
Good, yeah.
That's great. So we officially have, again, Miss Brian and Miss Nancy, and they're going to be talking to us or talking with us about, again, we talked about before the commercial there, the journey to becoming one in a blended family. And we already know they have a lot to say about that. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, they have a lot to say about that. So if you didn't know, first of all, we are, again, Daryl and Charlotte Baker, and this is Truth for Daily Living. We think it's important for couples to really find ways to deal with things on a practical level. So we've been inviting different guests to our show to really just help share their experiences about relationships, right? Mm-hmm. We have experiences, they have experiences, and we're going to be doing some other podcasts where we just share our own experiences, but we thought it was important to collaborate with other couples that are also doing life together.
Yes.
All right. So what we want to do first is I want you to introduce yourself officially and tell everybody just, a little bit about who you are, maybe your profession and how long you've been married. So those two questions, who you are, right? Your profession and how long you've been married.
You can go first.
All right. Well, my name is Nancy Laabs, my husband, Brian. We've been married 25 years coming up this October. Yay.
Yeah. Very good.
I am a real estate investor, and I teach people how to buy their very first property, their investment property in 90 days. So that's what I do. Brian?
I'm a project manager for software development for the banking industry, and I work for a large consulting firm. So that's what I do.
Great. So it sounds like you guys both are very busy.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are empty nesters now. So all of the blended stuff we've already traversed through that arena, so to speak. And we came out on the other side. So there is hope. So if anybody's watching and they're in the throes of it, there is hope.
Yes, that's great. So as we said, we're a blended family. We have one child together. She's 20. She'll be a junior in the fall. Well, next month. It's the fall, right? She'll be a junior in fall at Howard University. Shout out to Howard University. Woohoo. And my husband
have a son. He's 42 actually this year.
I know he only looks 2, but yeah.
That's all right. We get it. Well, I guess we forgot to say how many kids. So together we have 5, but Brian had 4, which he has triplets, and but they're all older now. And then we were both married before. So not only did we have blended family, but we had been divorced and, came back together. And then I have a daughter. She's the youngest. She's 30 now, and she's blessed us with 2 grandbabies, which now that's just a whole. I think that's the gift that you get after you go through the blended family years. A whole different kind of love.
Yeah. So since you mentioned the blended families again, can you say, did you face any challenges with being a blended family? Now we know the answer, and we know you're probably going to smile and like, did we? Or did we not?
Definitely challenges. That's for certain. Kelsey was the youngest, and the other kids Didn't take too well for it. There was a lot of interference from my ex-wife, and it was difficult. It was not an easy task to get the kids to come around. It took a lot for that to happen, and it still is a challenge to this day.
Yeah. So I think that the biggest thing was, just the values. Like, so we came together, from Brian and I came together from, different backgrounds, somewhat similar, but, how like parenting, how we raised children was a little bit different. So when we had, family time around the table, sometimes, manners were a big thing in my family. And so sometimes when his children didn't have the manners that, I was projecting my own, like, oh, they should have this or whatever. So we had like little things like that, so we worked on like, okay, compromises at the dinner table so that I would feel, I wouldn't go pull my hair out when I saw him, putting the elbows on the table, or food fights or whatever it would be. And so I think that was like, when you're starting out, you don't know what you don't know until you're actually in it. And back then there was really no podcasts or internet searches that you could go through, so but yeah, so I think that was like values were one thing. And then the way I'm a bit of a control freak, and Brian's very laid back. So discipline was another really huge hurdle that we had to overcome, because sometimes I felt like, like maybe I was too much of the disciplinarian and he wasn't doing, enough of the disciplinarian. So then I was always seen as the bad guy. And so we had to learn like games. So one game that we played, which was actually an eye opener for me, is we had shoes. Like everybody had to put their shoes in the middle of the floor. So there's like, so there was like 4 kids and us. So 12, everybody put on a pair of shoes. And so one of the kids put on, I had my, I don't know, high heels I used to wear. And they were like talking like me. And I was like, oh my gosh, is that how they see me? So sometimes you have to like be reflected back to be more empathetic. You still have to be the parent, but, sometimes it's a little eye-opening on, why they see you the way they do. So.
And could it also stem from, because sometimes I know in blended families, from us counseling as well, and that's a point I'm going to stop right there before I continue. We do provide counseling services one-on-one. And so if you need those services, we'll be posting that in a little bit, but you can always go to our website, enrichourmarriage.com. But some of the things we noticed from counseling in the past is that couples that had blended families, there may have been animosity with the incoming children on both sides, or at least one side. So in some cases, the children didn't necessarily like the new stepmom. I hate to say stepmom, but I'm going to say it so you get the distinction. Stepmom and stepdad, because they still had this idea that the original parents were going to get back together. At least that was their hope.
Yes.
Did you experience that?
Yes. So I think so my daughter was very young when I was divorced. She was only a couple months old. Brian, so she didn't really have that, because she didn't. And by the time I met Brian, she was just, a toddler. So she never really went through that part of it, because she's always seen Brian as her dad. But his children, because they were older, because by the time we married, the triplets were 6 and his oldest boy was 9. So yeah, they totally thought the parents were, there was a lot of, I don't even think they knew what it was. I think that they had this ideal that, yes, they were going to get back together. But then when we got married, things actually were kind of okay before we got married. But after we got married is when things just escalated. Because I think that in their mind, they knew that, oh, they're not going to get back together. And then I think they did have anger and resentment, but they didn't know how to, they're kids. They don't know how to express it. And then they just saw me as that person that's preventing them from, having that desire fulfilled. Most children want their mom and dad to, their original mom and dad to get back together. And really, from a step parent point of view, I think a little bit easier than I did. My ex was, pretty easy to get along with. I always wanted the kids to see me as a friend. I'm not here to, replace anybody, just be another, a support system for them. But unfortunately, they just, you talked about counseling, and we went through the whole counseling thing and everything. And
that was our next question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
we had to go to marriage counseling because
Right.
it puts a lot of stress on your marriage. And, we had
You're
fights.
reading my mind. I was just going to ask you,
Yeah,
what kind of stress did that put?
we were doing double duty. We were like we were in counseling as couples. We were also in counseling as individuals, and then we were in family. So part of it was for me, because I am kind of a control freak, and then there was no control, and also we couldn't, because of the scheduling, like you could never, I think this is a big thing that people don't think about. So when holidays, so like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, I have a fairly big family, and we always got together. It was very boisterous and happy and whatnot. Well, you can't always do that when you have a blended family because you have to share. So I finally had to get to the point where I said, okay, this is on my own side, sharing with my daughter and her dad. And I finally had to say, okay, you know what? If I don't get to celebrate Christmas with her on December 25th, that's okay. If it's December 29th, because for her, I'm just going to make it about the holiday, right? Mm-hmm. So once you kind of adopt that, it's better because you just couldn't have those and Brian had that same thing too, where his family always got together. Nobody had to share. And so funny, like fast forward, our daughter, our youngest, Kelsey, she's, got, she has another side, her husband's family. And so I'm finding myself having to share again. I'm like, wait a minute, time out. So we're having to do the same thing with our grandchildren now, but it's a lot easier because, there's not that, but yeah, that was a really hard thing. And then sometimes, as the kids got older, you couldn't really plan for things because, whatever was going on with them, or you had to deal with a family crisis because somebody wasn't getting along with somebody. So that was a lot.
Yeah. So Mr. Brian, what was your posture? I'm sure this was, and I know Daryl can probably attest, I'm sure it was a difficult thing because, of course, these are your children, your biological babies. And I'm making that distinction for a reason. And so to see how they interacted with your wife, I'm sure that had to put you in this like conundrum or something, right?
Yeah, it was very hurtful. And they knew it, and they didn't care. It was very difficult for me. And even though I had to talk with them, and one time at the dinner table, I actually had to lay down the law to him and say, listen, this is not going to continue. If you're waiting for me to make a decision between you and my wife, you're sorely mistaken, because I'm going to pick my wife. Mm-hmm. And Nancy's going to be, this family does not stay together without her. And, if you don't like what you're seeing, you're welcome to not come over. Mm. And that's the way it really was a point of contention for a long time, that this behavior could not go on. And when they were in high school, it came to a head, and some of the kids did stop coming over. Mm-hmm. And that was just the way we left it, and that's one of the reasons we actually moved to Texas was it was just too much. It was putting a strain on our marriage to where we could not continue in that vein any longer.
And it was not just toxic for the kids, we went to our counselor and said, hey, we have this opportunity, and they were teenagers, and that's a vulnerable time for them. But there was so much conflict at that particular point in time that our counselor, even said, you know what? Yes, if you move, it probably will help reduce the stress in their lives. They don't realize it because there won't be the conflict, right? And it kind of goes back to values. So there's between the triplets and Kelsey, my daughter, there's 5 years difference. So by the time they were 15, she's 10. And so the behaviors that they had, I don't want my 10-year-old to be, I'm like, wait, no, and so if they were allowed to do that other places, whatever that behavior was that I just didn't felt was appropriate for a 10-year-old, then that again, we circled back around to the discipline because, they want to express themselves a certain way, but she's 10, right? And so, or even when they were 12 and 13, that's there's like a big difference in 5 years. And it kind of goes back to, I was raising her a certain way religiously, and that with the kids, and they embraced part of it, but not all of it. But when they got older, they kind of turned away from that. But I was still, Brian and I were still going that route, as far as the spirituality. So that also caused a divide. But I think some of the behaviors as they were, just regular teenagers, the acting out years, that all teenagers do. But when you have a younger child in the house, whether it's biological or not, you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, that's not okay to do in front of them. You know what I mean? Or the language or whatever it would be.
Yes.
Yeah. So how important is it for you to communicate it in your marriage? And then have you learned how, at what point, during the area of chaos, did you come together and learn how to communicate and then get on one accord as well, so that the children can see you guys operating succinctly?
Yes. Yeah. And so I'm just going to say something. So I was raised in a household where we yelled a lot. We were loud. If you were mad, everybody knew it, right? Brian.
My dad yelled a lot. He was very loud. And I came from a family of 6 kids. So, I mean, he got his point across. But in our household, I will say that if the kids saw a crack in the communications, they would try to break in there and split us apart. So we just learned to communicate, and talk about everything that was happening, no matter how bad it was. We had to continue and keep talking about whatever it was. Everything that the kids did was, we talked about, scenarios that didn't even happen yet, because we had to play what if. And there was, as the kids got older, those what ifs got kind of complicated sometimes, and some of them actually played out. And it was just a matter of just not shutting down, not, and there were some times where Nancy knows that sometimes I think a lot, and I it's not like I was going away, but I would have to process things and then come back to her. It would, and she, sometimes has abandonment issues.
So I feel like, we have to talk about this like now.
She had to learn that she wasn't going to get an answer right away.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was like, I think the first time, because sometimes I would be, because I'm not, I'm a very emotive person, so it's hard for me to choke down. I mean, I feel better if I get my anger out. I don't hang on to it or whatever, but sometimes that's kind of ugly for other people to see. But I did have to kind of learn to curb. I wouldn't say I have a temper, but I'm very quick to maybe criticize or say, hey, stop doing that, or because that's how I was raised, like you just had a certain behavior. So it kind of went back to values. But Brian and I, in fact, when we first moved to Texas, for like the first, several weeks, we were having a hard time communicating, because we didn't have that chaos going on in our home anymore. Right. And now we had like this calmness. It's like, okay, well, now what do we talk about? Because our
right.
I mean, when I met Brian, for the whole time that we actually dated, like 4 or 5 years before we got married. So we've been together almost 30 years. Well, his oldest is 35, 36, somewhere around there. So we've always had the kids in the picture. So then when we moved here, so our lives revolved around them and what was going on, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, whatever it was. And so when that got removed, it changed our relationship. I mean, we just had to have a different kind of relationship, because
you had to learn, if I may interject, how to become one.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Without the kids. And sometimes I think a lot of couples deal with that, just in general, whether it's, a blended family or not. They have to learn what to do, as we say, the empty nesters, how to really reintroduce ourselves to each other, because the kids take up so much of your time with school
and energy. You're tired. Like, don't even want to go out on date night. Well, but you know what? But because we started off always doing, because we were friends first, and we always did things with the kids. We would just take them to the park or take them to the movies or whatever. So that part I always enjoyed. I guess the number of people around. We always had activities going on. but they were centered around the children most of the time. I
Yes.
can't remember if we ever took trips without, I think we took our first vacation as a couple, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, because we always took our, even if we
Right.
didn't have all so
That's
um,
normal. Yeah,
but now
that's
we are
normal.
empty nesters and we love it. We have embraced,
Yes.
the life of just the two of us and doing things.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
last year we took a couple trips and we're like, dang, we should have been doing this all along. So
Another question I would like to ask. So how did you learn to love even when it was difficult? So we know as parents, we love our children, but sometimes we may not always like the way they act. So, but we still have to express love and respect for them, even when they're, if they could be in our face and really, acting up or manifesting in a way. How did you learn how to still say, you know what? I still gonna show my love towards my children. How did you learn how to do that? Either one can answer.
Well, it is a hard thing to do. I mean, you can say it, but I say I love you, but I don't like the behavior that you're exhibiting, and it's very hurtful. And and they can see. I mean, I literally cried in front of my kids sometimes, and because of the pain that they would cause. And to tell them in so many words that this is not what you're trying to raise them to do, and to be better people than that. And it's just that it hurts. It hurt my heart that this is what they are choosing to do. And so I love you, but I can't condone this behavior. And I mean, there were times where I would take them home early. I just call their mom and say, I know that this is, you're supposed to have them for the weekend, but this is not working out. I might have to take one or two or all of them home because it's just, it's just not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think for me, because, I never really had those issues with my daughter, but for Brian's children, I always cared about them. I always wanted the best for them, setting an example and making sure that they didn't feel like I was encroaching on, being a second mom to them. I really just wanted to give them support. Their mom and I had completely different professions. So I'm all about women and, how we can do just about anything we want and we can, have confidence and things like that. So what happened as, the years got, and I would say today, out of the 4, only one actually likes me. So what I hope and pray for them is that they find happiness because, when you have that much resentment or hurt or anger in your heart and you don't get rid of it, no matter who you think has harmed you or whatever. So my prayer for them is that, that they just realize that, no matter what they think happened in their childhood from me or their influence of me or whatever, is that they find happiness and peace. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that so that's how I kind of look at it. I didn't really ever have to say to them, I love you. Because that just wasn't how our relationship was. Mm-hmm. It was more about, right. I'm showing you that I'm doing this. And I don't think they appreciated some of the sacrifices that I was making to make a home for them and, and have, them be in my life and vice versa. They made it very difficult sometimes. So sometimes I did have a little bit of resentment about it. But then as I aged and we got out of the chaos, because I think when you're in it, it's really hard. It's really hard when you're just in it and it just feels awful. And it's like, okay, no matter what I do, these children they're just awful to me.
Mm-hmm.
They talk awful to me. They don't, they're awful to my daughter. So it's really hard to say, well, I love you, So I had to kind of learn forgiveness and also to, in my heart, I just pray for them that they find a way, whether they have to go to counseling, they don't ever have to like me, they don't ever have to talk to me again, but I hope that they find happiness in their own lives and that whatever issues they feel like, because they're kind of stuck, back in those days. Yeah. I just hope for them because they're all in their 30s and it's, it doesn't get any easier, when you're 30, 40, 50, if you don't take care of some of those childhood hurts, you have to find a way to, forgive those around you, forgive yourself, and learn to live with love in your heart.
Yes. You had a
I
question?
had a question. Yes. Let me ask you this, because of the fact that I know that sometimes the motivation of acting out against a new parent basically could stem from their mother. Now, Brian, do you know if their mother actually influenced them or sown some type of seeds of discord, and those seeds just kind of grew up in them, then they start acting out, and it became a habit for them not to like Nancy?
The short answer is yes. It was toxic in their environment, to say the least. And it was, it was demonstrated in front of me when I would go pick them up. It was demonstrated in their behavior, because it was like they were emulating their mother. It was so blatant sometimes that it was just difficult to see, because there was really no reason for them to display their behavior toward Nancy, because they wouldn't give her a chance. They wouldn't give her an opportunity to show her love and caring for them.
Sure.
And it was just like a wall. It was a one-way, I'm going to abuse you, and I'm going to keep abusing you, because nothing's going to come this way.
Right. And sometimes that could be because, if I can interject, the spouse that is no longer, or the parent that is no longer in the scenario, there could be a level of jealousy. You know what I mean? Towards the new spouse, because they're not, although they may not necessarily want to be with the former spouse that they were with, but they don't want that person to be with anybody, and they don't want that person to be in that place. So a lot of times that's why they tend to, I would think, from what we've seen, not every case, but tend to portray the new wife or the new husband in a bad light because of their own maybe unfulfillment, dissatisfaction. They don't like the way things are. They think the new spouse is getting a better deal. It could be a lot of different reasons.
Yes. Yeah. And I think sometimes, and I'll just kind of turn it, because my ex-husband remarried shortly after we got a divorce. And let me just, for the viewers, Brian and I did not meet until after we were both divorced. So let's just be clear about that. We did not interfere on any other's person. But I'll just give my feelings about the other stepmother. So my daughter ended up having a stepmother, and her father saw her every other weekend. Now, we didn't have the chaos between the two houses. It was more, but I found myself like, so she could, just to give you an example, she could wrap a package way better than I could. She could make it so pretty, type of pretty custom, but I'm like lucky to get the Scotch tape on the bottom. That's just not one of my things. So my daughter brought a present home that her stepmother had wrapped, and instead of saying, and she was little, she was like 5 years old or something like that. And I was like, and I felt jealous inside that, oh my gosh, how dare she give that? But you know what I always try to do is step back and say, you know what, my daughter doesn't know the difference. She could care less if it came from me and it was wrapped up in newspaper, or if it was a pretty bowed box. You know what I mean? It was a gift for her and that kind of thing. So I think that, reversing it, in the beginning, like I said, we had no issues. I mean, between the households, really, it was very limited. It was not when we were dating, and we lived together for a year before we got married. It wasn't until literally the day after our wedding it started, and it was, and I think we were both taken aback. We were just like, okay, is this happening now? Because the kids at that time did, they were like 5.5, 6 years old. And, we had a really good relationship, very, very good. And the older they got, that just deteriorated. I'm going to just tell one more story just to kind of bring it home. So it wasn't very often we had the kids on their birthday, because it was like every other, week thing. So one year we had the triplets for their birthday. And so I always did this for Kelsey. I made cupcake back when you could make cupcakes for your kids' school, right?
Right,
so
right.
I would always make cupcakes for all the kids in her class. So each of the triplets were in a separate class, and they each had 30 kids in the class. So and they helped me do this, and they were so tickled pink. We made 90 cupcakes, after school, and, I frosted them and stuff. They take them to school. They're so excited, and they come back, I think a couple of days afterwards. And I was like, oh, well, did your friends like the cupcakes? Yeah. And they said, well, what's a winch? And I was like, what? So that was the name I was given because I baked cupcakes. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So that's just a little story that kind of, and I was like, oh, okay, well, and I just said, oh, I don't know. It's somebody that I said it's a baker. You know what I mean? So those are just some of the things, but Brian had to battle. It wasn't just in our household. It was the schools. It was the doctor's offices. So they didn't really talk about it a lot back then, but the parental alienation, we totally lived through that. We just didn't know what it was called. The courts weren't we were in and out of courts. We did the whole, I remember we discussed the psychological review because it was like, at that time, like $10,000 to go through that. You had to hire an attorney and all that. And we sat on and we didn't have $10,000. We got 5 children, he's paying a lot of child support. And so, but I said, we have to do this because, years, no matter what happens, you have to do everything in your power to, not only let the kids know you, but you have to feel good in yourself that you see what's going on and you're trying to, I don't know, make it better for them. And that's what we did. So, we made the financial sacrifice. We made an emotional sacrifice. It didn't really change that much, but we learned a whole lot about ourselves. And, and I think that if anything, if the kids do get to that point, they can at least look back and know that we tried to do everything that we could.
And the thing is, they made it, right?
Made it.
Because I would say you can say yes or no, but I would say you agreed to take divorce off the table, even though it was so hard. But you was like, that's not an option. Is that right?
Well, there was at one point, there was a Christmas that just the kids were in their teenage years, and kids they're just a lot of hormones going on, a lot of But then you have these other things happening. And and this has been at the 10-year point. And I had and I'm a strong person. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I literally was so defeated. I'd never had that feeling before. So we talked. This is around the time the opportunity came to move to Texas. I said, I just don't think I can do it anymore. I don't think I can. And not that I wanted to walk away, but I was at my wit's end. We're going counseling. We're doing this. We're doing that, and we still had a few more years to go. And I just didn't think emotionally or physically I was going to be able to make it. And I had to be there for my daughter. It's not just these children. I had to be there for her. So then,
but we kept, the important thing is we kept talking about,
yes.
And she was I've never seen her beaten down that bad. But we talked about it and we said, we're going to have to make some changes. We were constantly evolving through this mess. And you keep making changes and trying to adjust, and things weren't changing from the kids' side. Well, they were changing. They were getting worse. Their attacks were getting more grotesque. It was just horrible to see, because it was like they were trying to test her limits, and it was like they were upping the ante all the time, and it was brutal to watch.
Yeah, and then there was things going on with my daughter. So yes and no. So I kind of got to a breaking point, and we did talk about it. And had Brian probably not heard me, we would have probably had to divorce. I don't know how I could have stayed in it, but he didn't. We continued to go into even more counseling, for the two of us, because we were in a crisis mode at that point.
Right.
And then the counselor kind of helped us see that we have to do what's right for our marriage and for the other child that's in our household, because Kelsey lived with us all the time, and that we just couldn't. It wasn't healthy for us. It wasn't healthy for his children. It wasn't healthy for our other child. So we had to kind of make some decisions that, from the kids' point might have seemed selfish, but it was for our own self-preservation and the love that we were coming to the point, okay, we got married because we love each other. We didn't come together because we wanted to go to battle every day. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's the important part too, when we talk to couples, that you two were together first. now, although you're a blended family, but when I mean first husband and wife, you came together, just taking the children out for a moment. You came together because you loved and liked each other. And so you didn't want anything to separate them. And I think that's part of maybe even the other piece that children, to some degree, some know it, some don't, that they wanted to break that up.
Yeah.
Because they could see the love, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
that their dad had for you, Nancy. And they probably were like baffled, like, well, how can he love her like that? You know what I mean? So they wanted
it's
to
so
do anything
funny.
to break that up.
Yeah, and these the daughters are, grown women now, and unfortunately, you can still see that in them, that they want to be first. They want daddy's little girl. They want to, and there's still some resentment from the girls' side. Boys, not so much, but yeah, the girls are still struggling in their early 30s. So that's why I say I just pray that because I feel like if they can't resolve that they're not going to have good relationships themselves. You know what I mean? Because they have to find a way to move past that hurt little girl.
Yeah.
That,
What does that say? That
Forgiveness
is key. Oh my
yes.
goodness.
Yeah. And so I just hope they do, I mean, for Brian's sake, I hope they do before, we get too, we're not spring chickens. We're not going anywhere, but, it would be nice for them to reconcile before, they can't, and then they have to carry that with them the rest of their lives. So,
so
that's my prayer for them. So when you talk about love for them, I want them to be happy. I want them to be, fulfilled. I want them to be in a good relationship. And, but yeah, we have taken divorce off. I mean, we fight just like any couple, we have money problems. We have this, we have that, it's not just always about the kids, but yeah, we kind of decided that once we've made it through that, we feel like we can make it through anything.
Yeah. It's the long
now
haul.
we're like vested. And I always joke that I'm not going to divorce him because when you get to a certain point, it's too costly to start over.
You're too far in. You're too far in to go back.
Right. God's only going to give us X number of time on this earth, and I'm not going to spend it on a dating app.
Gotcha. What's your question as we wrap this up? Because let me say this. This is, before you say this, this is probably something we're going to have to do a part 2, whether it's with you two or not. But I mean, I think it's very important because we've come across it. So we know it's a serious issue in relationships that people, they become, make themselves in a lot of cases traumatized and don't want to deal with what's happening. And so they want to try to, stop the reality of what's happening because it's all really about them. Because when you're selfish, right, you don't think about the feelings of others.
That's right.
And it's unfortunate that our children, whether they're small or grown up, we've seen both, that still hold on. And what were you going to say, babe?
I was about to ask Brian, now, do you think your daughters have the capacity to forgive and also to receive forgiveness? And I'm sure you probably have asked for forgiveness many, many times, or have you?
Well, one of them I haven't talked to in about 4 years. And the other one I talked to around Father's Day, and the topic didn't come up, but we had a really conversation that could lead to something more. So so the forgiveness thing, I think they have the capacity. They're smart children. They're very intelligent children. I think they just got some emotional work to do. But they are intelligent. So I think that there's a great capacity for them. And so I hope and I pray.
Yes. One of the things that you can do to initiate it, just go to them and ask them to forgive you. Do it one by one. Okay. So we haven't had the best relationship. Okay.
Right.
Perhaps I've said some things that wounded you, that scarred you. I want you to be in a better position. Okay. My heart hurts for you. I want you to be in a better position. Okay. So one of the things I would like to do and ask you, will you please forgive me for any hurt, anything, discouragement that I've done, any disappointment that I've caused in your life? Will you please forgive me for anything that I've done to damage our relationship, because I love you? And that is going to be a season where now they have to take responsibility at that point. If they have not come to that place, you have to take responsibility and they have the responsibility to forgive at that precise moment in time. Okay?
Did you experience that? You did
I've
that.
experienced
Yeah,
that.
you
I've
did that with your
experienced that with
son.
my own son. Okay. And I've done it many, many times. Okay. Because the fact that one thing my son told me, he said he had built so many layers and so many walls, in his life, he didn't know how to pull them down. Okay. So one of the things to pull them down is to really to get them to a point where they're able to communicate and then have moments of vulnerability and expressing their true feelings and emotions, because what they've been displaying basically is a defense mechanism, okay, because of the fact that they hurt and they've been wounded. So, and they feel that as though they've been rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And so rejection is a spirit that rejects as well.
Mm-hmm.
You follow?
Mm-hmm.
So if they felt that you rejected them, you
Mm-hmm.
left them hanging,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and they feel defenseless. So now their only defense
Yes.
mechanism that they have is how they treating you, and they treating you
Yes.
because of the fact that they're hurt and the pain, okay, but they may not even understand it from that level. But if you're able to go in at the right season and time and just have that conversation and let them vent, let them tell you how angry they are, release it, let it go, give them the space to express that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're mature enough now to understand that, listen, you can't hurt me like you used to hurt me, because I understand a little bit more, okay? It may sting a little bit, okay, but nevertheless, give them the opportunity and then embrace them and say, no matter how you feel, no matter what has taken place in the past, there's nothing we can do to change the past, but what can we do to start a fresh future? Okay.
And that's the counselor coming out.
Yes. And then learn to build from there.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, that's good.
One at a time. You cannot bring them together because they're too strong together.
Yes.
You have to bring them one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yes.
And I believe that's going to be a turning point, for them and all for you and Nancy.
And that's a good your counseling hat, baby. Let me I give you some on. And although we counsel married couples, we do counsel on occasion individuals, but we understand, hurt is hurt, unforgiveness is unforgiveness. And when people live that way, their life becomes so toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't even know. We even say, how do you even function that way? Because it's such a weight when you live like that in unforgiveness. Literally, it can affect you physically. So we're in agreement. We pray that they, have an epiphany, have a moment to say, you know what, this is just too much. Why am I still holding this? Because it's not going to make any difference. When it's all said and done, it won't change anything. Right.
Exactly.
But they're the ones that need to change. So definitely, they would probably need to, once they get to that point, they have an epiphany that they need to maybe speak to a third party to help them process through, although, like I said, we counsel couples. You can go to enrichmymarriage.com. We have talked to individuals because we've seen, these patterns from things like this. Just seeing unforgiveness in any form is unforgiveness. It's not good for that person. So we encourage you. But that was good, babe.
Yes,
thank you.
You guys for almost 45 minutes because you guys have story to tell. I mean, it's good.
And this also, and then I really want to commend you guys, for the pressure that you've been under. Ooh. And you didn't give up on yourself. You didn't give up on each other, and you invested in your relationship. I mean, you're spending money when you go into counseling. That means you value what you have already established.
And could I just say one thing about that? Like, if anybody is listening and they're having to go through the whole child psychologist routine, what a racket. I'm sorry. The psychologist that we had, he just got his check. I mean, he was not listening. We had evidence. We had things that were happening. And he did not address them, and he did not, there was you know what I mean? And so who's suffering? We're not suffering. We're going to keep on going. We're going to, he's not suffering. The other parent's not suffering. It's the kids that suffered because he didn't do his job. And that was kind of okay, hello. And that's when we realized, well, I told Brian the deck, and it was, I don't know if the courts have changed that much, if they're more, father friendly, but you're talking, 15, 20 years ago, they were not very friendly. And especially, you have a single mom showing up without an attorney. She was, a very, she made a good income, let's put it that way. But there she was, single mom, 4 kids, woe is me. And of course he had a partner, right? So it the optics don't look good, right?
Right. Right.
And so the psychologist and I kind of, we didn't hit it off. I was telling him some certain things that I had witnessed that were completely inappropriate for the girls, that was happening, and he just poo-pooed it. And I think he poo-pooed it because I'll tell you what he did. My daughter was on the floor, and so she's about, I don't know, 3 or 4. She had to go to the counselor too. And you know how kids like are squirming around and everything, and we're all in there. And this is the first time that he had met me. So I picked her up. Maybe he thought it was a little too aggressive, to kind of calm her down. He brought that up. And when I had to have my one-on-one with him, I'm like, I'm sorry. I thought we were there to, she was being disruptive, and I'm being a parent and, having my child sit quiet for this period of time. And so I told Brian, I was like, I don't think this is going to go good, because, this is what he's already picking on, already looking at me as a potential problem in the household. And I'm like, dude, you need to be paying attention to this.
Right, right. That's unfortunate. I mean, sometimes, sometimes, you can connect with the wrong group of third parties. And I mean, I hope you guys, apparently you guys continued somewhere, because you said you got counsel for yourself individually.
Well, we had to go outside of them, but then there was another counselor involved who was actually part of the plan and wrote a letter to the courts that Brian had taped a tape recorder at this meeting with the mom, which was completely false. So there were, we were up against this kind of, I don't know. It was very, I was like blown away that this would happen. And so if it happened to us, and I feel like we're pretty educated people, we had a good attorney, or Brian did. But I was like shocked that some of this stuff that things got through the cracks, so to speak. So I'm just saying, pay for an attorney that will look out for you and protect your interests.
Well, let me say, we could continue this conversation.
I know. So,
oh my goodness. Like I said, we're probably going to have to do a part 2, whether it's including you guys. We'll see what we can do with you guys. But I mean, I think it's one of those big topics that you can't just hit in 45 minutes.
Right, exactly.
But we appreciate you both for being transparent. I mean, because those are difficult emotions to really share. I mean, you have to really be in a strong place to even want to share it, because there are times, I'm sure, like with my husband, he broke down because he was so hurt by his son's mother, the way she treated him and rejected him. He really went through some emotional pain, like you did, Brian. He told me, I wasn't there, but he went through some emotional pain. So it's a very heavy topic, but we thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you.
And we don't want to keep holding you, but before you go, you got one more question?
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out this as well. And for those that are listening, because of time, a lot of times men get the brunt of the issue, and sometimes we are viewed as though that we have no emotions, we have nothing, invested in relationship. Our heart hurts, and when we love our children, we love them. We want to see the best for them. And maybe we don't have the words or the ability to communicate it, at that precise moment of time, because of the emotion, the emotional situation that we're tied to. And so when you are emotionally involved in a toxic relationship, it's really hard for you to get to the root, the heart of the matter, and to explain and also to express it effectively, because you all bottle up. And so, and if you really want to express yourself, and sometimes because we express ourselves differently when we are upset, and anger comes out, and then of course now we are the major problem, we the major issue in it. But we need to have grace as well.
Wow.
Okay, to be able to allow ourselves to explain and to express what we're really going through, and then how this situation really affecting us emotionally as well. And so that's a lot of stress as well, right? And so stress basically, that can really take you down as well. So
this is what I see, because we're gonna have to. We can't hold them.
Yeah.
This is what I see, and you can decide, Brian, if this is something you want to be a part of. But I think we need to put something together as a forum for men who deal with this, with blended families, because men, like you said, they don't express. I know you know this, Nancy, the same way we do, and sometimes a lot of men, they bottle it up. They, it channels in the anger, it channels it, or they'll just become very subversive, and it's just sitting there, just waiting, just bubbling. And I think men need a platform to talk about these kind of issues. What do you think, Brian?
I definitely do, because like I said, I used to kind of go away mentally to process it, and then not give Nancy the answers right away. Yeah. But I would also do that, because I used to have when I was younger, I had a really bad temper. And I would just blow up. But I need, now in my older years, I need time to process. And you have to have that time to think through it and not be volatile.
Yes.
Right.
So before we let you go, I'm switching it because I don't want to hold you all night. I want you to tell us really quickly about your book, Winning Deals and Heels.
Oh, Winning Deals and Heels.
Yes. And where can we find it?
It's about a minute. Yeah. My journey and 9 other women, successful real estate investors. And I'm all about the community giving back. So a part of the proceeds are donated. When you can go to Amazon, order Winning Deals and Heels. And part of the proceeds are donated to Hope Store, which is a nonprofit here in Plano, Texas, that helps families heal from domestic violence. They provide shelter, they provide counseling, they have a resale store. And just if I can make one more plug, if anybody is interested in real estate investing and they have never gotten into it before, I'm having a workshop coming up. I have them like every so often, but I have one coming up at the end of July, and they're normally like $197. And for what your viewers, I'm going to give a coupon for $100, $97. Okay. So there you have.
Can they go to this Wallace? Did I spell it right?
Wallace, or they can go there and just send me an email. They can reach out. There's my phone number on there too. I'm on Instagram, Nancy Wallace Laabs. So just shoot me a message or something. But yeah, if you've always wanted to be in real estate and you don't know if it's for you or whatever, this is the workshop you need to come to.
All right.
Well, so thank you for letting me put a plug in. Appreciate that.
For sure. I mean, that's what this is about. Collaborating. Maybe you can invite us on your podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, we all about collaborating. So again, we want to thank you. Oh my goodness, listen, Mr. Darrell is going to be in touch with Mr. Brian, I believe. Because I think we're going to work through a podcast, try to figure out what that looks like, and to put that into the rotation, and then just kind of blast that to see who would like to be a part of that. Okay. So look out for Mr. Brian, look out for Darrell.
Okay. And I might have
hitting up through you, Miss Nancy, because I don't think we have Brian's email, but we have your email. So he'll be.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And
we'll
I might
to you.
Have an opportunity for you guys coming up too. So I'm working on something. So I'll keep you in the know.
Okay.
Well, thank you. We kept you longer than we promised, but
that's
man,
all right. It was fun.
Good.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Yes. All right. Us. You have a great evening, and we'll be talking soon.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a great session, and I'm moving quickly here because I know. Wow, I'm just I don't even know where to begin. Do you? It's like that's the kind of stuff we want to talk about.
That's a lot to unfold, basically, and that because they've been through quite a bit. But the thing about it, they really plowed through that situation, and I believe an average person, would not necessarily have continued, with their relationship with all of that interference with, with children involved. So.
So yeah,
That
we
was
just want
really,
it was great. I mean, like I
it
said,
was really good.
we're gonna work on something for men, men in general, but specifically when it relates to blended family. So make sure you stay in touch with us at enrichmymarriage.com. We'll have some information that's going to be coming up there. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is where we're going to be posting this. We'll be doing snippets on our other social media platforms. But make sure you go to enrichmymarriage.com, go to YouTube, Marriage Enrichment, the Bakers, all right? And some of the other things with us wanting to help couples, we have this cohort that we're going to be starting called Marriage Course Recipe for Success. So you're going to need to go to that website to find out the dates and everything you need to know there. So again, Marriage Course Recipe for Success.com is where you can find out more information about that. We're going to plan to do it like twice a year only a limited number of couples can join, and it's like a 6-week course where we talk about different things, even like this and other things. And the goal is to help couples to build a stronger relationship, because one of our tagline is enriching your marriage one day at a time. You got to do it one day at a time. That means some stuff you definitely have to be intentional about, right?
That's right.
And that brings up a point. Our last podcast, we talked to someone about, the topic was learning how to love authentically. So you can check that out on our YouTube channel, Marriage Enrichment, the Bakers, to see how that relates to what we're talking about, that we talked about in this particular podcast. All right. Make sure you check us out on, let's see, I want to show, we can talk about other channels. Let's see. So check us out on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. I like to call it TikTok. On Meta, however you want to call it. YouTube, yes. And also, we have another thing that we do. This is for local, though. We provide pop-up services because we believe you have to do practical steps, as well as because we believe spirituality, but you have to do practicality with spirituality mixed together. So one of the practical things that we offer for couples that are in the Atlanta area is something called Tablescape Rendezvous for Two. And basically, we have the ability to come and pop up. We have different things. If you go to the website, you'll see different things, whether it's the beach, whether it's sunshine, whether it's romantic red, and we can pop it up either in a park, but in particular, it would be great if we can pop it up in your backyard or on your back deck. And you have 2 hours to just talk and to bask in the presence of each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the practical things. And you've experienced it. What do you think about Tablescape Rendezvous for Two?
Oh, yeah, it was great. You isolated where you can be isolated. You go to a park, basically, or your own backyard. Mm-hmm. And then you have this time where you're able to eat different type of selections of food, and kind of enjoy each other and spend some quality time and just kind of you relax from the mundane activities of day to day, but give yourself an opportunity to implement some new thoughts, perhaps, and to reconnect and let it be romantic, and it can it can lead into something more intense as well.
And we're gonna leave it there. So remember, go to enrichmymarriage.com. That's our main website. Also check out our upcoming marriage cohort, where we have a limited number of couples that join together for 6 weeks. So again, if I didn't say, it's online, but then you have times where you'll talk to us over the 6-week period. Okay. And then again, Tablescape Rendezvous for Two. Check that out if you're in the local Atlanta area. And I think that's about it to wrap up this show. You have anything else you want to say? Mm-hmm. Well, again, we want to thank you for joining us on Truth for Daily Living. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Daryl.
And remember to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me put that up there. Thank you for joining us. Again, what is it? Comment, like, and subscribe. Go to our YouTube channel and go to our link tree, which is in all of our bios across all of the different social media platforms. And you can find out more about us. And we'll be talking soon. Okay?
Yes.
I think that's it.
All right.
We are signing out. It's the Bakers. Check us out. We got another podcast we're going to be hosting even this week. All right? So make sure you check us out. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.